you just do it,
Hello.
it'll turn out okay. And after a month's absence, Talking Time with Caffeine is back, and Dr. Dino is back. We both took a little
Yes.
vacation here.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. It's been pretty busy out here. A lot of stuff's been changing. But we are back, and hopefully we can make this regular thing and get this series finished.
Well, will ever be finished? Because we could break down the clades into more clades, break that down into more clades, break those down into more clades. Clades within clades within clades.
Okay. So what I'm about to say is not a joke. This is a valid sentence. We could talk about how Tyrannosaurus is a Tyrannosaurin, Tyrannosaurine, Tyrannosaurid, Tyrannosauroid. That's a real sentence. That's a valid sentence.
Just like dinosaurs, dinoforms, dinomorphs. So,
Yeah, but it's worse. What can I say? Paleontologists are nerds. We get way too specific.
just paleontologists.
No, not just paleontologists. I'm just saying paleontologists are nerds.
Point proven. All right. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, for today, we're going to be talking about a very historically important group of theropod dinosaurs. They don't make it to the end of the Cretaceous, sadly. So these didn't die out with the asteroid, they died out before then. But when they were around, they were pretty big parts of the landscape. And that's not even touching on just how important they are to science, which we will get into.
Now, if I get to this, but how were they close related or far related from our last topic of the Ceratosaurus?
Ceratosaurs. Well, that's a good question that'll be answered on this slide, actually. So, all right. As always with these streams, we're going to start with a hopefully super quick review. Dinosaurs split into groups. Theropods, 2 legs, eat meat, usually. You know what those are. As for megalosaurs in particular, they are one group in from our last topic, the ceratosaurs, which means that they are 1 theropods. Getting to here makes you a theropod. Then they are tetanurans. Tetanura means that you have these bony rods that are reinforcing your tail. Makes it stiff, makes it easy to swing from side to side for balance.
So does that mean you got your tetanus shot then?
No, but same root word. Same root word. With that said, that's where they split off. They do not. They are equally closely related to everything else over here because they dive out at this point.
So
they're kind of like your 4th cousin twice removed.
So they have
were a bird.
So they have no current living relatives. I mean,
no, descendants. They have no living descendants. And because of that, because they're not in this group, the Avatheropods, their bones aren't as pneumatized as most theropods are. Like when you think of a bird, it has, hollow bones. Most of these theropods have airy bones like that. The megalosaurs, I'll say, they're a lot denser, especially in some very specialized ones that we'll talk about. And as for when they appear, I chose this chart because it shows it pretty well. They first appear in the Middle Jurassic. There might be some that are from the Early Jurassic, but they're kind of contentious, and we'll get into why in a bit. And then they die out by the early late Cretaceous, which I know is confusing. They die out in this half of the late Cretaceous.
God, Is there like wasn't there, is there do you does the Cretaceous have epoch names or breaking down the smaller periods?
It does. All these periods do. Um, I want to say it's the Albian
Uh,
epoch, but
okay, yeah, a lot
I'd
of
have to double check that.
I talked about it in my geology episode years ago, but a lot of stuff, well, Precambrian, it's all a lot of people just posted in the Precambrian era, like all one big era to like one big all these eras. Then we go in the periods, and after the dinosaurs died, then they go back. Let's break up on the epochs now, and
Okay, and sorry, I was wrong. Not epoch. Early and late Cretaceous are epochs. The next unit down is ages, I believe. So they go extinct by I'd say about the middle to the end of the Albian. So about 100 million years ago, maybe a little earlier than that.
uh,
Alrighty. Caden saying Cenomanian. Maybe some of them did. Um, there might be some suggestions that they did. That they were on their way out by the end of the Albion, I guess I should say. Or at least they were much less diverse, which, considering what they become, is kind of sad and weird that they didn't survive longer, but they didn't. And we will get to where they get to.
but let's first get where they came from.
Well, fortunately, that's pretty easy. General theropod. Like with everything in paleontology, the farther back in time you go, the more everything looks the same. So they start out pretty basic, but before we get to the first ones, let's just give a quick overview for anyone who's curious. Oh, and would you mind putting us below the presentation?
I can only put it was there or put it beside.
Oh,
For some reason, we used to put, I used to put it below. For some reason, Restream was like, you know what? No, we're not doing that anymore. You get the side smaller, or you get in the middle of it. So,
that's weird. Oh, and as always, folks, if the artist credit is not in the image itself, it will be up here. We will put links to the presentation in the description. So if you want to see any of this art for yourself, just check the description, check the presentation, click on the link. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good art in this one because this group gets a lot of art. It also gets there's a lot about them on Wikipedia that's actually pretty accurate and really good. So there's going to be more Wikipedia links than usual. Anyway, and I assure you, I did not just research Wikipedia. I read papers, but there's a lot of good stuff on Wikipedia. So, what are megalosaurs? Just a quick, broad overview before we get too deep into it. Well, megalosaurs are, generally speaking, small to mid-sized theropods from the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. By small to mid-size, I mean they typically range between 10 to 15 feet long and up to 25 feet long, with a few exceptions, especially in a later group we'll get to. Megalosaurs are found all over the world. We have at least scraps of them on, I think, every continent except Antarctica. And that's probably just because we haven't explored there too much yet, because ice. And what's special about them is they seem to be some of the first heavy-bodied big theropods. And what I mean by that is a lot of the early theropods are really small or they're really lightly built even when they get big. Megalosaurs are the megalosaur body. Let's say a 20-foot long one would probably weigh about 1.5 tons, when for earlier theropods, it might be more like 800 pounds. Like they get heavy, they get chunky, they get strong. And by the end of the Jurassic, they become the apex predators of at least one of the continents, if not more. And then they get weird in the
So
Cretaceous.
so are these Gwandans or the other one?
Gondwanan, both. They, I think it's more Laurasian, but there's plenty in Gondwana as well. So they're kind of just everywhere.
So they were their clade came before the big split then?
The group appeared before then, yeah. But honestly, it seems to be more just with, or it seems to more so just be that, at least with the basic megalosaurs, they were really good generalists, so they could fit into a lot of different environments. Kind of like how canines are today. Like, there's a canine on every continent except Antarctica. These guys are kind of the same way. But Antarctica was warmer in their day, so they might have gotten there too.
So there's no one has a pet dog in Antarctica.
I would be concerned if they did. And also, just a quick warning, going to be a lot of hard to pronounce names in this one for some reason. Just a lot of the names are complicated, let's say. So, within Megalosauroidea, there are a few groups, and I use air quotes there because paleontology is an evolving field. Within recent years, there's been a lot of research that suggests that the historic group, Megalosauroid, or Megalosauroids, is kind of a mix of several groups that don't really need to be in there. But historically, the Megalosauroids have two major components. We have the Piatnitskisaurids. I'll just say that again, Piatnitskisaurids. I'm going to mess that up a few times. And the Megalosauria. And it's Ia because it's unranked. It's not a family or an order or anything like that. But recent research has, like I just said, suggested that the Piatnitskisaurids might actually be early allosaurs.
Mm.
But the problem is they're so close to the base of the tree of both groups, it's really hard to tell where they go. They kind of ping pong back and forth. And then sometimes they become their own thing too. It's complicated. More research needs to be done on it to fully sort things out. But due to this uncertainty, we're going to ignore them for now. If you're curious about them, they seem to be mostly smaller bodied, with a couple exceptions. A lot of them are from Argentina. There's at least, yeah, on here, Condoraptor and Piatnitskisaurus itself are both from Argentina. Marchosaurus, which is often a Piatnitskisaurid, is from North America, and then Schwanhanosaurus is from China. But we can forget about them now.
Right.
We're just going to focus on the megalosaurs.
Erase from brain.
And the megalosaurs are split into two groups, the Spinosaurids and the Megalosaurids.
Spinosaurus, the one dinosaur everyone hated from Jurassic Park 3.
Oh, there's going to be a lot to say about Spinosaurus. But we're going to meet the Megalosaurids first.
Right.
And it's only because they came first, for sure. Or appeared first, for sure.
In the geological history, or that's the first one that got discovered in the modern times.
Both. Oh, right, and I do want to shout out some of the stuff I show just because it's really good art. This is a model of Torvosaurus done by Jagged Fang Designs. They do a lot of stuff for games, and they do beautiful stuff. I think this is based on a secretary bird, but I could be wrong. And then this is a Suchomimus from Jurassic World Evolution, which it's actually probably one of the best renditions of Suchomimus I've ever seen. It's from a Jurassic World property. As for this diagram, here we have a bunch of skulls of megalosaurids. And when you look at them side by side like this, you start to notice a few things. Like, basically, all the megalosaurid skulls we have, they're all really long and low. And by really long and low, I mean they are at least 3 times as long as they are tall, which is extreme, even among just considering other theropods. And they usually have a nose. Now, of course, all dinosaurs had noses, but by that I mean they have like a big bump of a nose on here. Like you can see that and you can tell, oh, that's where the snout is. That's where the nose is. Which isn't as common in theropods as you'd think. Most of them have a much more rounded nose. And then within Megalosauridae, so the family of megalosaurids, there are 3 different groups, though sometimes these move around too. There are the Afrovenatorinae, which are pretty widespread. They're found kind of everywhere. And a lot of them are really lightly built. So these are the faster ones in the group.
Okay, are all of these carnivores or some of these on the herbivore side?
All of them are carnivores.
Okay.
As far as we know, there are no herbivorous megalosaur. Just megalosaurs. They're all carnivores as far as we know.
Right.
The second group are the Eustreptospondylinae. How many syllables is that?
Say that again.
7 syllables. Too many. Eustreptospondylinae. And they are represented on this chart by this little guy over here. And Eustreptospondylus is kind of small. And I say kinda, it's a little below average for a megalosaur. It's not like a dwarf, but it's small. And it has a really long face. Like Eustreptospondylus pushing past the 3-to-1 ratio. It's long. It's weirdly long. And it has a weirdly long premaxilla, which is this bone at the very front of the skull. That might be important later. And lastly are the megalosaurines. So these are all the ones that are super closely related to Megalosaurus. These ones are mostly from the northern continents, and these are the ones that get big. And I do mean big.
It's the name Mega.
Well, for the time it was mega. But for our first actual dinosaur, so we're out of the categories now, we are into dinosaurs. This is Afrovenator abacensis, the African hunter of the Abaca region, which is an area in I think it's Niger. In northern Africa, the Abaca region. Also, Caden is saying that the screen is super blurry. That's odd.
Is it there now or not?
Not sure. Let me check on my channel. If YouTube would let me just watch it. YouTube. Let's see. And we're pausing because if it is really blurry, we want to fix that. Okay, it's looking fine on my end. Not sure what's going on, but it's fine on my end. Okay, Might have been a connection issue, Caden. Well, he says it's better now anyway. Okay. Do. So, what's special about Afrovinator? Well, it's a pretty lightly built megalosaurid. I said earlier that megalosaurs in general are pretty heavy built theropods, but Afrovinator is an exception. It actually has really long legs, fairly thin legs as well, long thin arms, and well, pretty normal for a megalosaur head. The skeleton is partial, it's not complete, but it's estimated to be about 8 meters long from nose to tail, probably weighing around 2 tons, which, again, for an earlier theropod, a length like that, you might peak a bit over a ton. Herrerasaurus is a little smaller than that, but it's estimated at like a ton. And it was discovered in the 90s by a team from the University of Chicago, headed by Paul Sereno. His name is going to appear a few times in this. It was probably a pretty fast runner, and it probably preyed on early ornithischians and sauropods. I didn't include the time that it's from, but it's about 166 million years old, seems to be. So we're in the middle Jurassic. And for a comparison to other dinosaurs, this would be about the time that the first birds were really taking to the wing. Well, things we would reasonably identify as birds were taking to the wing. The first raptor dinosaurs were appearing. The very earliest tyrannosaurs were still these tiny guys that were just running around in the undergrowth. The first sauropods were getting really big. Afrovinator was found in the same formation as Jobaria, which we talked about way back when we talked about early sauropods. So something weighing like 30, 40 tons.
So these guys be eating sauropods or another herbivore?
Well, definitely young sauropods. Adult sauropods is a lot harder to say. But with that said, well, I will say we do have a relative of Afrovinator we'll talk about later, and we do have its bite marks on sauropod bones. But we don't know if it killed them or scavenged. We don't know. Probably did both. Most predators do both. And I wanted to mention this dinosaur in particular because I have a bit of history with it. When I was a little kid, I remember reading a book about the discovery of Afrovinator. I can't find it online. I don't know if it was ever put online or what, but it was about a kid who tagged along with his uncle on the expedition and helped to find the skeleton. And then the book ended with a picture of it mounted in a museum. It was really cool. Honestly, I'd love to read it again if I ever find it, but for like the last decade, it just has eluded me, I guess.
If you have the book, send it to us. P.O. Box, we don't have one yet.
If you have a very specific book from the early 2000s. But especially the way it was written, like it was written like a really fun adventure. So it made me want to go fossil hunting in exotic places. And as for the reconstructions of Afrovinator here, this is an older one from the early 2000s, kind of showing, well, it running at something about to chomp at it. I love how its jaw is tilted back just enough to fit in the aspect ratio. And then this is a more modern 3D model, actually, done by a very talented paleo artist who is linked up here. I wonder if some of these carnivores were named after actors or movies or actors. I don't know. We'll maybe talk about that in a bit. But you might recognize this little guy, Vandalia. Our next critter is Eustreptospondylus ox- oxoniensis. Oxoniensis. And the translation of the name is just as much a mouthful as the name itself. The true turned vertebra from Oxford. That's the translation of its name. Some I well actually I was about to question what they were smoking in the mid 1800s, but a lot. They were smoking a lot. Um so Eustreptospondylus is actually named after another dinosaur called Streptospondylus, but calling it a dinosaur is very generous. The original bone was one vertebra, and it was just part of the vertebra. But back in the 1800s, that's all you needed for a name. So it was the turned vertebra. Actually, I was about to say I don't know why. It was called the true vertebra because they thought it was like a crocodile or alligator, but the places where the vertebrae connect were curved differently. So they called it the turned vertebra. Um, anyway, weird name, uh, kind of strange history, but if you ever saw Walking with Dinosaurs, it should be familiar to you. Uh, Now, in that documentary, it was just a recolored Allosaurus, but it was really a megalosaurid, though it was kind of a strange one. As And we actually have a lot of its body too, which is kind of neat. It apparently holds the title of the most complete European theropod, which I should have included a picture of the skeleton because
Yeah, I do wonder if the Walking trilogy or quadrilogy had was reintroduced today in modern times, how much of that 3 or 4 part series would be totally different because of new information.
it's funny. The sequel is coming out this year. I I don't know if you've heard about it, but the paleontology Twitter especially has been exploding about it. Anyway, this is the skeleton of Eustreptospondylus. This is the most complete European theropod. As kinda sad as that is. Also, sorry, just a half second. As kind of sad as that is. With that said, we do have decent amount of the skull. We have a lot of vertebrae and complete legs too. And as Caden mentioned earlier in the chat, it is not fully grown. It's actually a juvenile, or at most a young subadult. So the adults probably would have gotten a bit bigger. Probably would have gotten to like 15, 20 feet long, but that's still not on the big end, even for megalosaurs, which don't generally get super big. Um, anyway, the length of the skull, and in particular the length of the end of the skull, has led some scientists to suggest it might have been partially piscivorous, might have partly been a fish eater, or at least a shoreline hunter or scavenger.
Mhm.
An also notable thing about it is that it was discovered in ocean sediments. It wasn't discovered in a land deposit. Now, there have been a few ideas proposed for why that would be. Some suggest it might have been a really good swimmer, possibly swimming between the islands that made up Europea. Wow, that made up Europe at the time. Uh, but we're not sure.
But I'm pretty sure we can say it didn't die in any global flood.
No, no, it did not. Also, really quick, we have a super chat from Vamsy Jessica Amanda. Thank you very much. No message attached, but if you have anything you want to say in the chat, we'll highlight it. Thank you very much. Right. But I think that's about all for Eustreptospondylus. Oh wow, Caden, I have no idea why you would say something like that. Don't put that on screen. Don't put that on screen. Caden, quit skipping ahead in the presentation, Caden. And before you apologize, it's fine. That was a joke. You're fine. Anyway, our next critter, we go from one of these smaller megalosaurids to hands down the biggest one and possibly the largest theropod in Europe, at least until the Cretaceous. This is Torvosaurus tannerai. And when I was reading about it on Wikipedia to refresh myself, I had never heard the origin of the name before. So I was very surprised. Well, part of it I knew, but part of it I was really surprised. So I'm just going to read this verbatim from Wikipedia on the Torvosaurus Wikipedia page. The genus name Torvosaurus derives from the Latin word torvus, meaning savage, and the Greek word sauros, meaning lizard. The specific name tannerai is named after the first counselor in the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Nathan Eldon Tanner. I never knew that. It was just so unexpected. I felt I had to include it. And actually part of it because I was pretty sure Caden would drop by. So a little fun fact for you there, Caden. I will say there are two species of Torvosaurus, though. That's the origin of T. tannerai. The other one, Torvosaurus gurnii, is named for James Gurney, the guy who created Dinotopia. And I love that. Also, Vamsy Jessica Amanda says, hi, Doc Dino from Georgie. Hi, Georgie. Hope you all are doing well. Anyway, for Torvosaurus itself, it was first found in the Morrison Formation in North America, but it has since been found in Europe and possibly in Africa. This is attributed to a few teeth from Africa and a possible shin bone that might also be an Allosaurus. So it's really hard to tell. It's really not a very diagnostic bone for theropods.
What?
Unless you're like a tyrannosaur, but they're weird. But in the Morrison, it's just one of many carnivores, while in Europe, it may have been the single largest theropod of the late Jurassic. T. gurnii, we only have a few pieces of it, but what we do have is massive. And you can see the size difference here. This little one is based on Torvosaurus tannerai. The big one is after gurnii. Like, it is remarkably more massive. And this is a character from a video game here for scale, but I mean, it fits. And then a 2-meter scale bar. But anyway, it might have reached up to 40 feet long. That is T-Rex size. Probably not as heavy, but in length, that's about as big as most theropod dinosaurs get. With maybe one exception. And Also, kind of befitting being named after the creator of Dinotopia. Um, Torvosaurus gurnii in particular has a lot of really great depictions across different pieces of media. This is one of my favorites from a documentary I've mentioned before, Dinosaur Revolution. They basically took a tiger and tinted it red, but it works really well. It's really cool. And in the documentary, it has a really great roar. I'd play a segment of it, but the music would probably get us copyright struck. So, sadly. Um oh, and one other really neat thing I did want to include. Apparently, we have a clutch of eggs from Torvosaurus gurnii, or at least a megalosaur that was a lot like it. These were found in Portugal. There are a few fossil sites there that are really famous for their fossils. And it's the same age as the Morrison Formation in North America, and about as productive too. And there is a nest in Portugal, and the embryos inside have bones that look almost exactly like a Torvosaurus, just shrunken down. It's kind of cool. Also, hello, Jody Wolf too, and Papa if you're watching. Howdy. Anyway, that is Torvosaurus, and it's time to go from the biggest megalosaur to the biggest name in megalosaurs, namely Megalosaurus itself. Megalosaurus bucklandi. This was the first dinosaur,
And
meaning it was the first one to be given an official name in a scientific publication.
and the bottom one is what they thought it looked like at first.
Yes, this is what we thought Megalosaurus looked like at the time. There was enough to identify it as a big lizard, hence the name. Um, but it had weird features. We had the hip, and actually up here you can see the bones in white are what we had at the time. So we had some tail vertebrae, we had a pelvis with femurs, some back vertebrae, and then half of the lower jaw. Now that's really not a lot, go figure. And then the blue bones that you can see here are bones of Megalosaurus that have been found since. It we just haven't found much of it. Like bizarrely, it's bizarrely rare. Or at least more than a few bits of bone are very rare. So a lot of what we know about Megalosaurus today is based on related animals. But there were enough identifiable features that Sir Richard Owen in 1842 used Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and a dinosaur called Hylaeosaurus, well, Hylaeosaurus, to coin the term Dinosauria. And I will say it was originally just named Megalosaurus, so just big lizard. Bucklandi was added later after William Buckland, the scientist who named Megalosaurus. So he didn't name it after himself, someone else named it after him. But again, we do have enough to know what type of dinosaur it is, and we have a decent idea what it looked like in life. And to be honest, can you really ask for a better name for the first dinosaur than Big Lizard? And then here,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Big Bird.
Well, it's funny. Some paleontologists at the time were noting how weirdly bird-like the bones of Megalosaurus are, which tells you a lot considering how far removed it is from birds. Those features are still recognizable. In the 1800s, they were recognizable. And then right here, I just wanted to show because I think it's really cool. This is the drawing of the original Megalosaurus jaw from Buckland's original publication.
Yeah, it's just
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
it's just a pet peeve of mine. I recently got the last few years, like having things named, but they're not. Like, well, at least dinosaurs are closer to lizards than Basilosaurus, which is a whale ancestor. That's that's
Well,
way off a lizard.
okay, so to be fair with Megalosaurus, it was obviously a reptile. They knew it was a reptile. Saurus, we translate it as lizard, but really it just means reptile. They mean the same thing. Or sorry, it can translate to both. It means both. It's just that group of animals. So
Well, then
you could just translate it as the giant reptile.
well,
But
then definitely
lizard's been done historically.
well, then definitely not Mosasaurus. That's a lizard. Basilosaurus is definitely not a reptile.
Basilosaurus is an exception. I'm sure I've told this before, but do you know how we found out that Basilosaurus was a whale?
Was it the
Someone
ear thing?
dropped the. Or go ahead.
Was it the ear thing?
It was part of the ear. Someone dropped the skull on the ground, and the diagnostic inner ear bone of a whale fell out.
But unfortunately, first names first name first come.
Yes. It's funny. At the time, after it was determined to be a whale, Sir Richard Owen, who again named Dinosauria, he wanted to call it Zeuglodon. I think I'll stick with Basilosaurus. Oh, but so we talked about the megalosaurids. Those were them. The last ones are in the late Jurassic. Torvosaurus is actually one of the last ones. Megalosaurus was about 170 million years old, so it's actually kind of early. But the other major group within Megalosauria are the Spinosaurids. Now, I will say this has been kind of more recent that they've been found to be megalosaurs. But when you put all the pieces together, it kind of fits. Especially when you consider that we already had long-snouted megalosaurs that might have hunted fish, as Caden alluded to earlier with Eustreptospondylus. The signs were there, and Eustreptospondylus is probably what Eustreptospondylus is probably what it's probably representative of what eventually evolved into Spinosaurs. So yeah, it's kind of neat. Oh, and someone on your Twitch is asking if the one yellow dot in America is in Utah. I don't know, but I believe that is something else now. Like it was found not to be a Spinosaur. Anyway, as the Jurassic, well, one thing I will say to the people watching, there's going to be a little bit of a narrative, a little bit of a mystery going on from this point forward. So I hope you all enjoy that experience. So I planned this. As the Jurassic came to a close, the megalosaurids disappeared, And by the time the Cretaceous began, they were gone, as far as we knew, or as far as we know. But something new took their place.
F in the
And
chat. F in the chat for our fallen
for
friends.
megalosaurs. But something new had taken their place in a more bizarre form than anyone could have anticipated. They were, as far as we know, all semi aquatic fish hunters, most likely coming from long snouted megalosaurids like Eustreptospondylus. Um, the Spinosaurids quickly colonized the coasts of the Old World, with some even reaching South America. Uh, Interestingly, it does seem that they enjoyed the tropics. Most of them stayed kind of near the equator. And even the dots that are like up here, um, England was much farther south at the time, so it was much closer to the equator.
Yeah. This map is a modern map, not a map of modern land.
Exactly. Now, whenever we come to a new group in these streams, I try to give examples of the things that set them apart from other theropods or from other related animals. With Spinosaurids, it's kind of everything. Just them. And I'm going to quickly move on. So we're actually going to start with the most normal of the Spinosaurids, at least compared to other theropods. That being Suchomimus tenerensis, or the crocodile mimic of the Tenere Desert. Like I said, it's the most similar to other theropods. It's got legs, it's got a tail, it's got arms, all that thing.
So, do you think if they had gone on, lived long enough, and gone on longer, that these guys would have been like the dolphins of the dinosaur family?
Huh, that's an interesting question. Anyway, Suchomimus was found in the late I'm moving on because we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So it's found in the late 90s. And Suchomimus is also one of the most completely known Spinosaurids. The original material is in pink here. It's mostly leg bones with some vertebrae. But we found actually a few individuals, and they have enough overlapping parts that we're sure they're all the same thing, or at least we think they're all the same thing. So we have most of a skeleton, actually, for Suchomimus. And these are all scaled to be the same size. That's sometimes a concern. Based on related elements, these are scaled to the same sizes. So this is what an adult Suchomimus would have looked like. And you can also see it's pretty big. It's estimated to be about 10 meters long based on the largest individuals, which, I mean, that's a good 33 feet. That's pretty big. And as for its anatomy, it's kind of like if a grizzly bear, a heron, and a crocodile had a baby. Because Suchomimus has some features that basically all Spinosaurids have to a degree. They have short legs, huge, and I do mean huge, especially for a theropod, muscular arms, a long neck, tall neural spines, and neural spines are the kind of spike coming off the back of the vertebrae here. You can see that. And they have very long faces, like very long faces. And they do this. It's like if someone took their face and pulled it with a taffy puller. All the bones are stretched. But the weird thing is, because Suchomimus is the most normal Spinosaurid, like if you look at it, oh, yeah, that's a meat-eating dinosaur. It just has a long face. It being the most normal, makes it the oddball within Spinosaurids, at least from what we know of at the moment on April 5th, 2025. It is weird because it is more normal than its relatives. As for our next Spinosaurid, we have Baryonyx walkeri, or Walker's Heavy Claw. And really quick, Eddie McCoy's asking why the skeleton's multicolored there. So the different colors show different animals, like different specimens. Like I said, this is a composite of, I think, about 4 or 5 different skeletons, all resized and then put together. So, like, the pink stuff is what was originally found. The blue stuff was found nearby from the same species. And orange is other stuff, or from other skeletons that were less complete. Anyway, so Baryonyx, the heavy claw. So I'm going to emphasize this point. Baryonyx is one of the first named Spinosaurids, and it's still one of the most complete. And Baryonyx was described in 1986. The group Spinosauridae has been around since the early 1900s. Interesting. It was discovered in southern England, which, again, was much farther south at the time, so it would have been much closer to the equator. And it was found with both fish scales and bones from a juvenile iguanodont in its stomach. I think they might be referred to Mantellosaurus, but I'm not sure. And we don't know if it hunted the iguanodont or if it scavenged it, but it does show that Spinosaurids didn't just eat fish. They ate land meat too. And Baryonyx is named for a feature that's common to many Spinosaurids. A lot of them have a massive claw on the first finger. Like, all their claws are big. The first one is disproportionately huge. Just a weird feature that they all share. And another odd thing that's more about its environment than Baryonyx itself, it shared its environment with 2 other Spinosaurids. They all lived side by side at the same time, as far as we can tell. Those being Riparovenator and Ceratoseucops. I think those are both pretty cool names.
So, like, each one had their own little niche they stayed on, so they didn't compete.
I don't know, to be honest with you. And I do want to highlight, for all of these Spinosaurids, drawing of the skeleton is going to be in the top right corner. And I'd encourage people to pay attention to what parts we have preserved and what parts we don't. And then here for the art piece for this part, I had to include it. This is a comparison between a real Baryonyx and the one that was shown in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. See, the funny thing is, they already had a stunning, a beautiful design in the concept art, and then somewhere between that and the movie airing, it changed to a monstrosity, and I hate it. In my opinion, it's the single worst design in the sequel trilogy, but that's just me. Anyway, our next one is called Irritator Challengeri. And I'll just say that again. Irritator Challengeri. I'm not translating that. Onto a more fragmentary member of this family. This animal has actually kind of an interesting history. It was originally collected and sold by fossil poachers in the late 90s. The original specimen is just the back half of a head, missing the nose. And the sellers used plaster to complete it before they sold it. Apparently, it was such a terrible mess that was so frustrating to fix. This animal's species was named for the inconvenience. That said, once it was finally freed from its plaster prison, Irritator has been a wealth of information about Spinosaurids. The skull material we have is amazingly well preserved. It's from a formation called the Romualdo Formation, which is known for its spectacular preservation. And it was so well preserved, there are still papers coming out that are analyzing Irritator, just that part of the skull. Like in 2023, we learned it had a hypermobile jaw hinge, which would let its jaws tilt outward, probably to let it eat larger prey. It's a really cool adaptation that we see in a lot of fish-eating animals, and it's so well preserved. We have evidence of it. As for this diagram up here, what is confidently Irritator is this green part of the skull up here. The other colored bones are Spinosaurid bones from the same formation that might be Irritator or they might be something else. We're not sure. Just because we have no overlapping material. With that said, we do have a tip of a nose that is often referred to Irritator. We have a pelvis, which is actually pretty complete. Some bits and bobs of the limbs, and some tail vertebrae. With that said, all of the vertebrae do show that it would have had a really tall, sail-like back. If this is Irritator, which it probably is, but we can't say for sure.
Sydney has a question.
No, it's not. I know where you're getting that, but no. And then we go from, kind of weird but normalish theropod, kind of weird normalish theropod. And again, just pay attention to the bones we have of these animals. Slightly weirder theropod. And then we get this. Well, that's a curveball, ain't it? And you might be asking yourself, is this Spinosaur missing part of its back to cause that little divot there? Apparently not. According to its discoverers, the people that named it, it's not weathering, it's not an injury, it's not a deformity, as far as we can tell. This animal just had a tall sail running along its back with a weird dip at the front of its hip. What's white in here has been described. What's red has not been described. But based on the undescribed material, which we do have photos of, it also appears to have had a really long tail with a sail on it, on both the top and bottom. Weird. So, I guess an interesting question. Did some of these fish eaters start to swim like a fish? Because their tails start to look very fishy, I guess you could say. Oh, and I do want to shout out this bit here. This is a rendition of Ichthyovenator. Oh, right. Translation: Fish Hunter of Laos. It's from Laos. Um, this is a rendition of Ichthyovenator from a game called Beasts of Bermuda. If you like dinosaurs, you will love this game. It's got a lot of heart to it. It's really fun. I love it. And they have Ichthyovenator in it. And it's semi aquatic. It can swim. Which, yeah, I mean, that's probably a pretty safe bet that it could swim. And here's where the pieces start to come together. Or at least they will soon. It's time to talk about the namesake of the group, Spinosaurus aegyptigus, the spined lizard from Egypt. And
The original pharaoh.
maybe. And one thing I will say is if you love dinosaurs, if you know anything about Spinosaurus, I would like you to remove that from your mind. Cast yourself back to 1912 when this thing was first discovered. All the dinosaurs are walking like this, like you can see in this illustration here. They're weird, they're slow, they're standing upright. That's what dinosaurs look like. Basically, look like Godzilla without the thing on his back. Oh, where'd I pointed that out? But we're going back then. And to start us off, again, we have to go back to 1912, when some very weird bones are discovered in the Egyptian desert. There are long jaws with teeth like a crocodile. There are these deep, wide set ribs. And by that I mean like the body would look like this, almost kind of circular or a really fat oval, which is really weird for theropods. Most of them are much skinnier. There are vertebrae with some just absurdly massive neural spines on the back. Like these are really well drawn. This is the base of the vertebrae. This is the spine coming off the back. And all of these bones, they're coming out of the same dig site. All from the same animal. What is this? Well, 3 years later, the German paleontologist Ernst Stromer named it. He named it Spinosaurus aegyptigus because of the spines and because it's from Egypt. And the fossils went on display at the Munich Museum of Paleontology. And I mean, we had enough to know it's a theropod dinosaur. Don't know what kind, but it probably ate meat, right? Like weird face, but okay. Unfortunate. Okay, for some reason the chat is wigging out for me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the chat's down. That's weird. Anyway, Ernst Stromer named it. We knew it was a theropod. We knew it ate meat. But unfortunately, time marches on. Here, just a second.
That's okay. I might do something that I got a bot in chat, so I.
Oh, yeah, that could. I mean, would that brick it or?
I'll try to block.
Also, I'm gonna try a thing really quick. Oh, and okay, yeah, it looks like my chat's still working on my computer, so that's good.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to set a super chat goal. So, I I put a lot of work in this presentation, folks. If you're enjoying it so far, please think about dropping a super chat. It helps me out quite a bit to take the time to do these presentations, which
Yes.
I really enjoy, but they cost time.
Yes. $5 million.
I would do a lot of things for that amount of money, and like 80% of it would go to a museum, or 2, or 4. A lot would go to museums. Also, I'm gonna try refreshing my page really quick just to see if it's a problem with me. So I will be.
Right. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this. While we're waiting for him to return. Oh, he's back.
It might have been a problem with me, or I just had to refresh it to fix it. Okay, we're good. I'll share the presentation again. Okay. So, anyway, 3 decades after 1915, oh, well, a little less than 3 decades after 1915, a war was on. And I do want to point this out. People assume things because he's German. But possibly due to Stromer opposing a certain German political party, the Spinosaurus skeleton was not put into storage for protection. It was left on display in the Munich Museum of Paleontology, which was destroyed by a bombing raid. I mean, obviously, the bombing itself was a terrible thing. It cost many lives, but a lot of really important fossils were lost due to this, and some we've never found more of. So, one of a kind fossils were lost. A lot of things were lost. But time continued to flow. And as time moved on, we started to see shadows of some strange lost monster. So we're going forward 4 decades again. And it's 1986, and a new dinosaur has just been unearthed from the Smokejack clay pit in southern England.
I have just graduated from kindergarten.
And to the authors that named this new dinosaur, it seemed weirdly familiar. And it didn't take long for us to figure out what it was and what it had to be related to. I mean, just look at that face. The field of paleontology just was buzzing. Like, this was something that people got really excited for, because for 40 years, Spinosaurus had just been a mystery in dusty old notebooks. All we had were photos and drawings. It was just this big mystery. What is this thing? What could it be? What kind of meat-eating dinosaur is it? Like, that's a question we were really trying to figure out in the 80s with a lot of dinosaurs, but Spinosaurus in particular. And then we find something like it. And it lets us fill in some gaps. And that process only speeds up when, in the 90s, a lot of other Spinosaurs were suddenly discovered. I won't ask you to remember them, but Suchomimus was discovered in the late 90s. Irritator was discovered in the late 90s. While they aren't, well, Irritator's not super complete. Suchomimus is really complete. So Suchomimus helped a ton with like fleshing this thing out. Like, it's so similar, right? Spinosaurus is just bigger. So we filled in a lot of the gaps we had with Suchomimus and Baryonyx. And things got really crazy when we started finding bits of Spinosaur bones in Morocco. bones that were of the size where the only named Spinosaurid of that size was Spinosaurus itself. So the paleontology world was buzzing about this. And the news was so exciting that a certain movie maker thought that this Spinosaurus would make for a great villain in his movie. And then in the 2000s, everything changed. So before we go to the next slide, I just want to walk you guys through what we've seen so far for the Spinosaurids. Ignore that last bit. So we have Suchomimus, fairly normal theropod, kind of weird, short legs, big arms. Okay, nothing too crazy. It's a fish eater. Baryonyx seems to be supporting a similar thing. We don't have any of the tail, we don't have the lower legs, but okay. Irritator, also fragmentary, but it supports what the others have shown. Ichthyovenator was discovered in 2012. And we were like, hey, this is really weird. This thing's got tall spines, but it's got a weird back. It's got this big tail with big spikes. What's going on here? And then in 2014, we found another Spinosaurus. And then here's just a skeletal of what Spinosaurus looked like, back then. But then we found a new skeleton. Not bones, not bits of bones, a skeleton. It was uncovered in Morocco, and this skeleton had a tall sail on its back. But moving down the body, we pretty quickly left what was familiar. It had a long neck with a crest on its head, which is kind of neat, kind of cool to know. It had a long torso that was short and deep, which is weird for a theropod, but kind of shaped like a ship, shaped like a boat, weirdly enough. It had a weirdly small pelvis and a pair of really tiny legs, both of which were super unexpected. And I didn't list it here, but the torso itself is really long, even compared to other Spinosaurids that we know of. It's just a really long, boat-shaped torso, tiny legs. But it's all from one individual. These were found in articulation. It's one animal. And it's not fully grown, but it's at least a subadult. So if it was like deformed or something, it's pretty unlikely it would have gotten to this age. Also, I have been informed I am being rated. Oh dear. Hello, Mark and others. Hello. Hope y'all are doing well. Thank you. Thank you for the raid, Sarah. Anyway, all this taken into account, and I will also note we have basically everything in front of the hips, but nothing behind. It looks really front heavy. So if it was supposed to stay upright like other theropods, you'd have to have a huge tail, but no theropod has a tail big enough to make this work bipedally. At least none that we know of. And because we got a question about it, let me start with this. These are the skeletons of Spinosaurus throughout the ages. So here we have the original one by Stromer. We have a pretty classic 90s one after the discovery of baryonyx. These are the original bones put onto that body plan. And then this is what was found and published in 2014. And it's multicolored because it's combining bones from different skeletons, all resized to be the same size. We have red here is the new stuff. So everything in red we didn't know. And it turns out what we didn't know were the weirdest parts of Spinosaurus. And then a new paper came out in 2020.
Everything changed again.
Remember when I said no theropod has a tail big enough to make this thing feasibly bipedal? Well, it turns out those weirdly tall tail spines on Ichthyovenator might not be as rare or weird as we expected. Now, this one is multicolored. This skeleton here is multicolored for a different reason. And I want to reiterate, all of this was found together. This is the same individual. What's pink was published in 2014. What's green was published in 2020. Apparently, they found this in a cave. And like all this stuff was like already out in the cave. Some of it was actually kind of just on the surface and it eroded out. The pelvis was mostly in the rock. It was nice and complete. And then they had to dig into the hill or into the cave wall to get the tail out. And they found basically the whole tail. Apparently, this is what Spinosaurus's tail looked like. And this is what Spinosaurus looked like. For reference, it took over 100 years for us to figure out what Spinosaurus looked like. Paleontologists ended their careers not knowing what it looked like. Paleontologists were born, learned about dinosaurs, learned about Spinosaurus, started their career, and ended their career before Spinosaurus, I'm not going to say was solved, but before we figured out what it was, what it looked like. And, what do you know? Spinosaurus, it could walk on two legs. They were short, but they were really strong legs, apparently. And probably had webbed feet, too. Like I said, the new skeleton is a subadult, but we have bones from other individuals that are much larger. Taking those bones and scaling the subadult skeleton to match, there are some that might have been 45 feet long. It might have been 50 feet long. Some have been estimated to 60 feet in length. And the scary part about that is that the 60-foot mark is not a stretch. May I remind you, the next longest theropod, the estimate for it is maybe 45 feet long. Maybe. And then some of these bigger Spinosauruses might have weighed over 10 tons. So, putting all this together, what was Spinosaurus? And again, a century-long mystery. We now know. Spinosaurus was a gargantuan, bipedal, piscivorous, so fish-eating dinosaur. It was the largest member of its family, and it would have been an Olympic-level swimmer. Some paleontologists still bicker about how quickly it could swim, if it chased prey down or ambushed them, or if it just fished from the river's edge. But regardless, it was probably one of the best swimmers of all non-avian dinosaurs. And I
So-
specify non-avian because penguins are birds.
yeah, that's why I said till we get the penguins. What's makes the Spinosaurus come back?
But Spinosaurus really took the limits of what dinosaurs could do and shattered them, apparently. And just this whole story, the saga of Spinosaurus, it's taught us a lot about the ancient world, but also and just how incredibly much animals can change. For almost a century, we had like a couple bones, pictures of a couple bones to go on. We had to fill in the gaps using its relatives. But thanks to these new discoveries, the tables have turned, and what we've learned about Spinosaurus is making us reconsider what we know about other Spinosaurids. And I'll just go ahead and highlight those. I told people to pay attention to the skeletons. So Suchomimus, fairly complete. Kind of notable, we don't have a lot of neural spines for the tail, though. Baryonyx, we don't have the lower half of its legs, and we don't have its tail. Irritator, we don't have its legs, we don't have its tail. Ichthyovenator, don't have its legs, but its tail also has those big weird spines. It also had a tail fin. So, did Irritator? Did Baryonyx? Did Reparovenator or Ceratoseucops? We don't know yet, but it's tantalizing, and I hope we eventually learn.
Paleontologists, get on it. if you're watching this in the future.
And there, if you pay attention to, I hate saying this, but paleo Twitter at all, like if you pay attention to spaces where people talk about dinosaurs, there are memes about how Spinosaurus is always changing. What's this year's patch notes? People will say.
Is there a paleo Twitter?
Yes. Just just search dinosaur on Twitter. You'll find.
Oh, okay. So it's actually Twitter. Actual Twitter.
Yeah. Paleontology on Twitter. Paleontologists tweet. I don't. Others do. Anyway, like there are jokes about how much Spinosaurus changes, and some of them, like the annual patch notes, I'm not a huge fan of, but Spinosaurus has changed a ton, but every change has had reason behind it. And the entire story has taught us a lot about how to think about like fragmentary skeletons like this. Like there's so much variety in the animal kingdom. And I think Spinosaurus is a great illustration of that. And I also want to highlight, when we started this presentation, sorry for the white light, we started with like Torvosaurus. Like this is just a meat-eating dinosaur. And then we wind up stranger than this. It's evolution's a really crazy process. It's really cool. And I think that's kind of the end. Well, sorry, there is one more thing I did want to mention. And that is, despite all we have of Spinosaurus now, there are a couple things we are missing. We don't have a complete set of arms, for example. See, I think, yep. We still don't have a complete set of arms. We don't have a complete sail of Spinosaurus, which is kind of crazy to think about.
We don't have his DNA.
It's named after. I mean, yeah, we don't have its DNA, but like, there's still mysteries to be uncovered about Spinosaurus. We might never get the full picture, but we've already learned a lot.
Unless somebody with a time machine.
I mean, that'd be something. But But I think then
All right.
that's kind of it. Thank you everyone for listening to me prattle on about megalosaurs and spinosaurs for an hour and a half. I think we can open the floor to questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, where when yeah when did the cells make a comeback here? Because before they were in the Permian, and I think they may come back in modern times. But when did they come back here for Spinosaurus?
Are you asking why it had a sail?
Yeah, why? When?
Um, see, the problem is we don't know. I mean, hypotheses have been proposed. Could it have been for heat regulation? Maybe, but dinosaurs are ancestrally warm-blooded. I mean, maybe it could have helped it stay warm while submerged in cold water, but
Okay.
most aquatic animals don't have an adaptation like that, even the ones that are warm-blooded. Could it have been for display? Almost certainly. Like, you're wearing a literal billboard on your back. Like, hey, I can grow this. I've got good genes. Or this is my territory. Spot this coming from a mile off, or I don't know, I'll slap you with a fish.
So did people ever confuse these with Dimetrodons at all? So they both have in the past.
Yeah, they do. And it doesn't help that a lot of people still think Dimetrodon is a dinosaur. I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you already know, but Dimetrodon's closer to us than it is to Spinosaurus, even though they look kind of similar. And weirdly enough, actually probably lived pretty similarly. Like there's a lot of evidence that Dimetrodon was semi-aquatic. But I don't know. Yeah, and Sydney Raptor's right. Sails make it look much bigger from the side. It is notable that Spinosaurus did live with a lot of other theropod dinosaurs. The rock formations it's known from have, I want to say, at least 4 other theropods that weighed over 2 tons at least, and at least one other one that probably could have gotten up to 7 or 8 tons. So almost as big as a Spinosaurus. So if you can look bigger and maybe scare some competitor or possible predator off, then do it. Especially since Spinosaurids are so specialized for hunting fish. Like, they can slash with their arms, but I mean, if your opponent is biting you, like their face is going to get to you before your arms can get to it. So,
Right. Any more questions in chat?
well, I'm not seeing any. Also, I'm just realizing I forgot to change the font for the title of this page. Great job, me. But no.
All right. Well,
If no any questions, should we finish up?
yeah. So far we've talked about Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus, and Megalosaurs.
Megalosaurs. We have to figure out what we cover next time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, let me go back to our little phylogeny real quick. Well, so here's the problem. If we move closer to birds like we have been doing, our next group are the tyrannosaurs, and I'm not sure you want to do tyrannosaurs so early. Like that feels like maybe the end or about the end territory.
All right. So we can go hop over to the sauropods or back over to the Orithis. Anything we missing the
To
Orithians?
ornith- well, we already did all the ornithischians. Hmm. I mean, We could. Oh, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough.
Somebody wants to.
Sydney Raptor says Raptors. Oh dear.
That's even closer than Tyrannosaurus. That's even closer than Tyrannosaurus.
No, we could flip the script and just do early birds. Like the origins of birds, not getting into where they eventually end up.
Alright.
Yeah, yeah, maybe birds and raptor dinosaurs. I feel like that could be fun.
Alright. Alright. So what's coming up until we figure out a date? What's coming up on your channel that you want to advertise?
Well, let's see. I would like to do more science-focused streams in the near future if I can. I'm also going to be. I'm going to be able to do a lot. I'm going to be able to do a lot more field work in the near future. So, I don't know. I might start uploading like vlogs or something of my time hunting for fossils or just doing other field work. Um, I also just started a new series. We could do the in-depth Packy video, but we need Vanessa for that, and she's really busy lately. That's why she's not here tonight. Anyway, I started a new series on my channel that I really want to. I'm actually kind of excited to do the next episode on, where I tell people about the geologic history of different parts of the world. I'm starting with U.S. states right now, but I'm happy to go anywhere in the world. So far, Kentucky has been a pretty well asked for one, so that might be next. So might come out with a geologic history of Kentucky this week.
I'll be watching for the Ohio episode, and if you need a guest star, I'll be here.
I appreciate it. I mean, they're mostly going to be like short edited videos, so not like a stream, like something you can just put on in the car or something.
Okay.
But I had a lot of fun making the first one about Iowa. But I think that's it for me. How about your channel?
So while we're deciding when to do the episode we're coming up with for us, on April 20th, I will be a guest star on Maya's channel for Bad Science Sunday. And then on May 10th, the second Saturday of May, I'll be interviewing somebody about photography.
That'll be interesting. Can I ask what you're going to be on Bad Science Sunday for?
No clue.
But
I'm actually off work that Sunday, so I am free.
Well, I hope you have fun with that.
Other than that, I'll be streaming some games on my Twitch channel. So if you haven't followed yet, do so. Unless you're a bot, then don't.
See you, folks.
As I always say, enjoy the randomness. Never stop learning. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching my podcast or Let's Play. If you want to help support my channel, you can make a monthly or yearly pledge on Patreon, or just a one-time donation on Vimeo, PayPal, or Cash App. For those looking for something to wear, we have some shirts, hats, and other stylish things in our merch store. If you enjoy gaming, you can always follow and sub to me on Twitch. For those who don't want to give money, I have an Amazon and Steam wish list who can help the channel out. And of course, just liking, leaving a comment, and sharing this video helps more than you can imagine. And always remember to never stop learning and enjoy the randomness.